I want to talk for a moment about this T.S. Eliot quote that comes from his poem Little Gidding, where it says, "We shall not cease from exploration, and at the end of all exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." It's a quote that actually means a lot to me. I found it for the first time in an attic in a church on a reservation that I was returning to. It's one of the first places I had traveled my own, and coming back, seeing it there was important to me. And I think it's important at the end of chemistry to look back at where we started, to know where we've arrived by looking back at where we began, and to know it. And so I want to start, just as we did on the very first day of chemistry, by looking at the remsen demonstration. And by looking at all the things that we've covered this year to understand where we've been and how we got where we are. So let's go over and look at that reaction together. At the very beginning of the year, we showed this on the first day. We said it was the notes of Remsen, a chemist. And we read his notes and did the experiment more or less as he said. So let's see it again just like we did in lab. Remsen writes, "While reading a textbook on chemistry, I came across the statement, 'Nitric acid acts upon copper.' I was getting tired of reading such absurd stuff and determined to see what this meant. Copper was more or less familiar to me, for copper cents were then in use. I had seen a bottle marked nitric acid on a table in the doctor's office, where I was then doing time. I did not know its peculiarities, but I was getting on and likely to learn. The spirit of adventure was upon me. Having nitric acid and copper, I had only to learn what the words act upon meant. Then the statement, nitric acid acts upon copper, would be something more than mere words. All was still. In the interest of knowledge, I was even willing to sacrifice one of the few copper cents then in my possession. I put one of them on the table, opened the bottle labeled nitric acid, poured some of the liquid on the copper, and prepared to make an observation." So here in the video, the man is about to pour in some nitric acid over some pennies made of copper. Adds a few mils there. Looks like a single penny. Remsen writes, "But what was this wonderful thing which I beheld? The scent was already changed, and it was no small change either. A greenish-blue liquid foamed and fumed over the scent and the table. The air in the neighborhood of the performance became dark red. A great colored cloud arose. This was disagreeable and suffocating. How should I stop this? I tried to get rid of the objectionable mess by picking it up and throwing it out the window, which I had meanwhile opened. I then learned another fact, that nitric acid not only acts upon copper, but it acts upon fingers. The pain led to another unpremeditated experiment. I drew my fingers across my trousers, and another fact was discovered. Nitric acid also acts on trousers." In the interest of time, I'm going to speed this video up for just a moment, because the reaction takes a while for it to get to the next step. Remsen writes, "Taking everything into consideration, that was the most impressive experiment and, relatively, probably the most costly experiment I have ever performed. I tell of it even now with interest. It was a revelation to me. It resulted in a desire on my part to learn more about that remarkable kind of action. Plainly, the only way to learn about it was to see its results, to experiment, to work in the laboratory." That's how we started this class. And this reaction was chosen for a lot of reasons, but not the least of which is I think it shows you so many of the things you learned this year. So the rest of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the video again in a different view. And let's go through and see what we've learned, work through each of the concepts, and show how this reaction encapsulates your year to, at the end of things, see it again with new eyes. I hope that seeing this reaction again for the first time with new eyes, at the end where we've started, is a moment of reflection for you and one where you can see just how far you've come this year. I'm thankful for your labor and your effort and your flexibility in chemistry, and hopeful that it is enjoyable for you as it is for me. I hope you have a good summer, one of rest and safety and preparation to be juniors, and look forward to seeing you again at Rockhurst at 9301 State Line Road. Until then, thank you for this year. Y buen camino en todo.